The night the emergency alert system told us to lock our doors and never look outside, I thought it was a joke. Just another glitch, or maybe some sick prank, but it wasn't. This wasn't a test. This was the end of the world. The first time the alert went off, I honestly thought my phone was broken. That piercing screech rattled through the speaker, the kind you usually only hear during late-night tornado drills or Amber Alerts. But the message, it wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before. Emergency alert. This is not a test. Lock all doors. Close all blinds. Do not let outside. Stay in a windowless room. Do not open the door for anything. I stared at the screen, waiting for some kind of explanation. A chemical spill? A military exercise? But no, that was it. Just a list of terrifying commands. My first reaction was to laugh. It had to be a prank, right? I mean, it felt straight out of some apocalyptic horror movie. But my hands were still shaking as I set the phone down. The words didn't feel like a joke. They felt like a warning. I texted my parents, half expectingly them to tell me it was just a glitch. But my dad replied almost instantly, "We got it too. Stay inside." My mom added, "Don't go near the windows." My stomach dropped. If they got it too, then maybe this was bigger than I thought. Just to test it, I messaged one of my online friends who lives halfway across the world. "Hey, did you get this?" I typed, sending him a screenshot. I waited, staring at the typing bubble until he finally replied, "Yeah, same exact thing. What the hell is going on?" That's when I realized this wasn't local. This wasn't even national. This was global. My phone buzzed so hard it nearly slipped out of my hand. The same robotic voice came through again, but this time the message was different and worse. "Emergency alert. This is not a test. Unknown creatures have been knocking on doors and killing anyone who answers. Do not open the door. Do not look outside. Major hotspots include Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Toronto, Moscow, and London. They are everywhere. This is an invasion. May God help us all." My blood ran cold. Creatures. That word alone was enough to make my skin crawl. I read the alert over and over again, hoping I had misread it, hoping it was some sick joke, some hacker messing with the world. But outside my bathroom door, the silence was gone. I started to hear things, a car alarm screaming into the night, a window shattering somewhere down the street. Then, a sound I'll never forget, this deep, guttural screech that didn't sound human, didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard in my life. I froze. My phone almost slipped out of my hands. My parents weren't replying anymore. My brother, my sister, nothing. I kept sending texts, each one more frantic than the last. No answer. Then the sirens began. Not just one kind, but layers of them. Emergency nukes, tornado warnings, air raid sirens, blaring all at once like the world itself was screaming. The walls of my apartment shook, the floor vibrating beneath me as if the building itself was afraid. I wanted to believe it was just mass hysteria, some global prank, anything. But when I pressed my ear to the bathroom door, I heard something I can't explain. Heavy footsteps, not like a person's, too slow, too deliberate. Each step echoing in the hallway like it was searching for something, searching for someone. And then, silence, followed by a single knock on a door nearby. Not mine, thank God, but close enough. I held my breath. Seconds later, a scream ripped through the air. It cut off fast, like it had been swallowed whole. I wanted to cry. I wanted to run, but the alert's words burn in my head. Don't open the door. Don't look outside. I was trapped. And worse, I wasn't sure I was trapped alone. By the time the next alert hit, I was already shaking. My phone screen lit up bright in the dark bathroom, and the words blurred because my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Emergency alert. This is not a test. The extraterrestrial are attacking every major city in the world. They are everywhere. They can kill with just a look. Stay inside. Do not attempt to fight. Millions are already dead. Millions. I read that number again and again until it stopped feeling real. Millions gone in less than an hour. How is that even possible? I wanted to throw up. Outside, the world didn't sound like the one I knew anymore. No traffic, no chatter, no city hum, just destruction. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a building collapse, followed by another wave of car alarms, each one cutting off suddenly like they'd been smashed flat. Glass shattered, metal twisted, and over it all, Those inhuman screeches again, deep, echoing, like they were calling to each other. Hunting. My apartment shook violently as something hit the building. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and for a second, I thought the walls would give in. I curled up tighter in the bathtub, my flashlight clutched against my chest like it could somehow protect me. Every bone in my body screamed at me to run, but where could I go? Out there was death. In here was maybe waiting, maybe safety. For now, I thought about the government, about the military. Surely someone was fighting back. Planes, missiles, something. But then another thought hit me, darker than all the rest. What good are weapons if you can't even look at the enemy without dying? My phone buzzed again. Not an alert this time. A text. My sister. For a split second, relief flooded through me. I opened it fast. Don't trust voices at the door. That was it. Just one sentence. No hello, no explanation, and then silence again. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, trying to figure out if she was safe, if she was alive, or if that was the last message she'd ever send me. Then, another knock, this time on my door. I sat there in the dark, my heart hammering, trying to decide if I was listening to a neighbor begging for their life, or to something pretending to be one. The knocking stopped. Whoever, or whatever, it was on the other side must have moved on. But the silence that followed was even worse. It was the kind of silence that presses down on your chest, makes every breath feel too loud, like the walls themselves are listening. Another alert came through, the words sharper this time, almost resigned. This is not a test. The extraterrestrial are everywhere. Billions are dead. We don't know what they want. Stay inside. Do not engage. Billions, not millions anymore. Billions. In just a few hours, the human race had been cut in half, or worse. And the messages, they weren't even trying to sound reassuring anymore. They read like death notices. It felt like the government had already given up. Outside, the city wasn't a city anymore. It was chaos. I heard concrete snapping as buildings collapsed, the metal groan of entire structures being ripped apart. Somewhere close by, a woman screamed until her voice broke into silence. Then another sound followed, something heavy dragging across the pavement, like a body being pulled away. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sounds forced their way in. The sirens blared again, loud enough to rattle the tiles under my feet. My whole apartment trembled with every impact, and for a second, I thought the floor beneath me would cave in. I pressed myself into the tub, clutching my phone so tightly it left marks on my skin. I tried calling my parents again. Straight to voicemail. My brother, my friends, anyone. Nothing. Just empty rings into the void. It was like the people I loved had been swallowed up, one by one, and I was the last one screaming into the dark. That's when it hit me. Maybe there was no one left to answer. Maybe the voices I'd heard, the knocks, the screams, they weren't people anymore. Maybe I was just listening to death wearing a human voice. I started to wonder if survival even mattered. If the world outside had already ended, what was I clinging to? A bathroom with no windows, a flashlight with dying batteries, a phone that was nothing but a lifeline to ghosts. And in that moment, sitting in the dark, I realized the truth that chilled me more than any alert, any siren, any sound of the creatures themselves. I wasn't waiting to be saved. I was waiting to die. I couldn't stay in the bathroom any longer. Every second I spent huddled there made the sounds outside sharper, closer, like the creatures were mapping the walls around me with their presence. My flashlight flickered, and I swore I could see shadows bending just beyond its weak circle of light. Another alert came through, the words almost shaking on the screen. This is not a test. The extraterrestrial are attacking every major city. Stay inside. Millions are dead. We do not know their intentions. I'd seen the panic in my neighbors' faces earlier, but now the panic was mine. My apartment felt smaller, suffocating. I could hear the faint creak of the floor outside my door, a deliberate step that didn't sound human. It was slow, precise, like whatever was out there was studying me, waiting for the exact moment to strike. I thought about opening the door, screaming for help, maybe trying to escape, but even as the thought crossed my mind, I knew it was a death sentence. They could kill with a look, the alert had said. One glance, and it was over. My chest tightened, every instinct screaming to stay put, to disappear in the shadows of my own room. My phone buzzed. I jumped, nearly dropping it. A friend from across the globe had sent a message. "Are you okay?" The alerts, everything's happening here too. I couldn't respond. I couldn't type. Every tap on the screen felt like drawing attention. I stared at it, frozen, as something heavy thumped against the building. The vibrations ran through the floor and into my spine. Then came a sound I'll never forget, scratching. Tiny at first, almost polite, but then louder, faster, like claws scraping metal, glass, stone. My walls weren't walls anymore. They were barriers that trembled with the impact of something impossible. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them, like heat radiating off the floor, a weight pressing down on the ceiling, a presence everywhere at once. I pressed myself to the tub, shaking. I whispered to myself, "Don't look, don't move, don't breathe too loud." My hands were numb from gripping the flashlight. The creatures didn't just terrify me. They made my mind race in ways I hadn't thought possible. Every scenario played out. I open the door by accident. I look at the shadow. It's over. I hide in the dark, and maybe I survive a little longer. The night stretched on. Minutes became hours. The sounds outside, the dragging, the knocking, the unhuman whispers never stopped. And through it all, I realized something that froze me colder than any siren or alert. The world outside had changed forever. The people who were alive yesterday weren't alive anymore. The monsters didn't just kill, they erased. And I was just waiting to see if I would be next. When the alerts finally stopped, it didn't feel like relief. It felt empty. The silence outside my apartment was heavier than any siren, thicker than the worst panic I had felt. I stepped to the window, just a crack, and couldn't bring myself to look. Part of me wanted to see, to know, but I knew that one glance could end everything. The next alert confirmed what I already feared. Billions were gone. Entire cities had been reduced to echoes. I tried calling my family, my parents, my siblings. Every number was dead. Every text went unanswered. The internet was a strange mix of functional and broken, like the world itself was rebooting. And in the midst of it, I realized something horrifying. I was one of the few left, one of the few who had survived the attack. I wandered through the streets cautiously, stepping over debris, through cars overturned and buildings partially collapsed. The wind carried the scent of smoke and something fouler, something I couldn't name. Occasionally, I saw a shadow move just beyond the corner of my vision. My heart raced, but each time I turned fully, there was nothing. It was a reminder the monsters had left, or were hiding, waiting for a moment of carelessness. Survival was not heroic, it was primal. I scavenged for food, rationed water, and slept in dark corners, too afraid to trust any sound. The city was a graveyard of humanity, empty streets stretching for miles. And yet, there was an eerie beauty in it too, a silence so absolute that every step felt like trespassing in a forbidden world. I tried to reach others. Only 3 people I knew had survived: my sister, my uncle, and my best friend. Each had their own story of terror, their own narrow escape. We communicated in fragmented bursts, sharing coordinates and tips for survival. It was the beginning of something fragile, a tiny network of life amidst unimaginable loss. But the guilt was unbearable. Why had I survived when billions hadn't? Every breath, every heartbeat was a reminder of the emptiness left behind. At night, I imagined them, the creatures, the people, the chaos. I questioned whether there was any purpose to staying alive. Part of me wanted to surrender, to let the dark take me before it could take anyone else. And yet, there was something stubborn in me. Humanity had survived this far, and maybe it could survive again. Maybe it needed me. The world was broken, the people gone, but if life could continue, it would have to start somewhere. I resolved to find the others, to rebuild even in the smallest way, to honor the dead by keeping their memory alive. Still, every creak, every distant crash, every flicker of light in the distance made me flinch. The creatures had left, but the terror they brought would linger forever. And for the first time in my life, I understood that survival was only the beginning. Not relief, not safety, but a raw, terrifying responsibility. Weeks passed, though time felt meaningless. The sky was a dull gray, filled with smoke and ash, and the sun no longer seemed like a friend. Cities lay in ruins, Forests burned, oceans choked with debris. Survivors were scattered, traumatized, and terrified. I met a few, faces gaunt, eyes hollow, each carrying stories that could curdle your blood. But more often, there was silence. Most people had no one left. I tried to keep moving, to check on my sister and best friend, to gather whatever food or water remained. The world had changed irreversibly. Entire communities were gone. Governments had collapsed. Emergency systems no longer worked. Humanity was reduced to fragments, hiding in basements, abandoned homes, anything that could be called shelter. The creatures. We never saw them again. The alerts warned us, the stories told us what they were capable of, but the ones who survived never saw them directly. And perhaps that was worse. The unknown. The faceless predator. The knowledge that billions had died by a glance we might never witness. Fear became a constant companion, a shadow in every corner, a chill in every breeze. Each day I faced the same question: why am I still here? I thought about giving up, about letting the darkness claim me, but somehow the thought of the dead, the billions whose voices would never be heard, kept me moving. Survival was no longer just about me. It was about honoring those who didn't make it. Each action, each breath, became an act of defiance against oblivion, and yet, hope flickered, fragile and uneven. My sister and I found a small cluster of survivors. Together, we started mapping the city, scavenging, clearing ruins, establishing a small sense of order. Every step forward was a victory, no matter how minor. Humanity might rise again, slowly, painfully, but it could rise. Still, I cannot erase the image of those alerts. The words repeat in my mind. This is not a test. Citizens of the world, lock all doors, do not look outside, do not leave your house. They haunt me because they were the only warning, and even then, billions didn't survive. Every time I hear a knock on a door, a rustle in the distance, my heart jumps. The world is alive, yes, but it is haunted, scarred, and unforgiving. Perhaps the real horror is not what attacked us. Perhaps it's what remains. The silence, the emptiness, the lives erased in a blink. We survived, but the world we knew is gone. The human race has been reduced to a handful of frightened, stubborn souls, forced to rebuild from ash. And I am one of them, left to grapple with the weight of survival, the ghosts of billions, and the terrifying knowledge that the next threat could be just beyond the window. 2 weeks after the invasion, I finally allowed myself to look outside my barricaded room. The world had become unrecognizable, streets cracked and empty, buildings skeletal, a heavy silence that made every sound feel amplified. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping for any news, any sign of normalcy, but the signals were patchy. Most networks were down, civilization had fractured, and humanity felt like a distant memory. Only 3 people I knew had survived: my sister, my uncle, and my best friend. Every other friend, every neighbor, everyone I once considered ordinary, gone. The guilt of survival weighed like a physical burden. Why me? Why any of us? I sometimes thought it might be easier to just let go, to give in to despair. But the surviving few, our fragile network, depended on each other. Humanity needed someone to remember, someone to rebuild. We began organizing, cautiously venturing into the ruined city to salvage supplies, to map safe routes, to communicate with other pockets of survivors. Every noise outside triggered panic. Every shadow seemed like the creatures returning. Sleep was a stranger. The mind, when left alone, spiraled into terrifying scenarios, imagining the dead, imagining the creatures, imagining the world ending again before we had a chance to start over. And yet, there was purpose now. Every day we found something that reminded us of the world that once existed. A tattered book, a cracked photograph, a toy half buried in rubble. These fragments became symbols of survival, each one a promise that we would remember, we would endure, and we would rebuild. But even with this resolve, the fear never fully disappeared. The memory of those alerts. This is not a test. Citizens of the world, lock all doors. Do not leave your house. Replayed endlessly in my mind. The invasion had ended, but the psychological scars lingered, an invisible predator stalking my thoughts. We had survived, yes, but nothing would ever feel safe again. Some nights, I catch myself listening for the faintest knock, the softest whisper, the smallest shadow flickering past my window. Every creak of a floorboard makes my heart pound. Life continues. Society will slowly rebuild, and humanity might rise, but the terror of what we faced will never fully fade. The creatures are gone, but the fear they left behind is permanent. And in that silence, I finally understand, surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about living with the knowledge of what almost destroyed us.